Iran is now going after the enemy of the entire human race, which is Israel.
Well,
And
there's
Iran
no
is,
argument, Dr. Jones. There's no argument with you on that, and we're going to talk about that. I guarantee it. We will talk later about that. Tonight, it's my great honor to once again be speaking with Dr. E. Michael Jones, the editor of Culture Wars magazine and a longtime commentator on questions of culture, religion, and politics. So let's go. Let's get into it. And tonight, we welcome Dr. E. Michael Jones. I'm going to be picking your brain because I'm aware that you actually, a little bit ago, were a visitor to what's called Iran today. When was that you visited Iran?
I visited for the first time in 2013. And then I went back regularly until about 2023.
Okay, so that makes you very well versed. Many commentators, talking heads, influencers, etc., appear to lack like a deep understanding of the country's political structure, religious structure, history. I mean, in your view, how common is this, Dr. Jones?
Very common. Alan Jackson said it best. Don't know much about Iraq and Iran. Okay, couldn't locate them on the map.
Right. Yeah.
That's typical. That's why he's a country western star, because he
Right.
articulates the mind of the people who buy his records or whatever they're called now.
I like Alan
Donald
Jackson,
Trump
but
just, I used to sing his song, but here in the real world,
yeah, yeah,
anyway,
that's a good song.
nice song.
Right.
Nice song. An ignoramus, typical American ignoramus,
He's richer than
but
me, but yeah.
nice song. Nice song. Anyway, in that tradition, Donald Trump just announced on the plane, he's flying from Dover, Delaware. The first corpses are showing up from the war against Iran, and he's standing there with Pete Hegseth. And did you bomb that girl's school and kill 150 girls between the age of 6 and 12? And he said, no, the Iranians did it. And then Higgs says, yeah, the Iranians did it. Now, I know from my Iranian sources that those girls were the children, the daughters of heads of the Revolutionary Guard. So that means the fathers killed their own children, their own daughters. That's implausible, to say the least. And then once he launches into that lie, then he just shoots off into the stratosphere and says, the Iranians, they chop off babies' heads. They cut women
he
in
was
half.
talking. Let me interrupt because
Wait, wait, wait.
He was talking about they bombed a desalination plant, which is where they get their water, which is a war crime. And so he tries to change the subject and make it about, like you were just about to say, but go ahead. I just wanted to know that was about the bombing of the desalination plant, which was the video clip I was trying to play. But go ahead. Yeah, he said
So
that.
they cut off babies' heads in Iran. And then he goes even farther into the stratosphere. He says they cut women in half. Now, I am going to testify right now. I have traveled all over Iran. I never saw a woman cut in half in Iran. Okay, never. This is, I think I know what he's talking about. First of all, which way, if this is a reporter for the Washington Post, he identified himself. At this point, the reporter should have said, well, do they cut them off horizontally? Cut them in half horizontally? Or do they cut them in half vertically? And what type of instrument do they use? So, you know what I think he's got in the back of his mind? I think he was watching the Ed Sullivan Show when he was growing up, and they had a magician in there. I don't know where you ever saw this, where the magician cuts the lady in half.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah, I've seen it in other tricks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think that he had in his mind. He is totally delusional now. This is totally delusional. We're supposed to have the press there. The premier, there are two premier newspapers, the Washington Post and the New York Times, and they're both there, and nobody can seem to ask them, well, where did they do this? So we're in a totally delusional state now because we need to justify this attack. And we need to prevent everyone from knowing that it is going badly for
Right.
the United States and Israel. It is going especially badly for Israel.
Amen.
They are taking a beating. Tel Aviv is taking a beating on a daily basis.
Well, okay, so let's pivot before we that's all great because that's in my later questions. But I want you to discuss from your personal uh, interactions with Iranians, what you found, and Mike, did you ever see that video from I believe his name's Rick Stiles, who visits all kinds of places as a vacationer, and then he does like travel logs. He did one on Iran back in the early '90s and the '80s that really affected me. It made me realize that these are good people. These are not like bomb throwing bomb throwing Muslims. These are like really good people in general. So why don't you give us your experience of the country as you experienced it in all these years?
Yeah, so the first thing I went to was a conference on Hollywoodism, which I thought was brilliant to talk about the effect that Hollywood had on the world culture, run by a guy named Nader Talebzadeh, who studied film in New York. I think it was uh, either Columbia or New York University. And then when the revolution happened in 1979, he went back and fought for the Iranians. There was no fighting then, but then he eventually got involved in the war with Iraq and was affected by poison gas attack and died during the COVID because his lungs had been weakened
Hmm.
by that type of thing. But a great guy, very uh, intelligent guy, a guy who was a good listener, a guy who had a talk show that was absolutely great. The biggest audience in Iran was his talk show. And so to give you some indication, he brought me in at the time of Black Lives Matter. And so he wanted to have a conference on Black Lives Matter, and he made the mistake of bringing in a lot of black Muslims. Uh, I say it was a mistake. These are the most racist people I have ever met in my entire life.
American black
Uh, to,
Muslims? Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
America, yeah, from Chicago for the most part. But
Oh gosh.
a hundred,
Okay.
now, on the other hand, I have met a black Muslim
Hmm.
uh, and met him, gave him a copy of the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit to give to Minister Farrakhan. And he
Hmm.
told me in this meeting, we all listen to your podcast. And Dr. Jones, if you get in any trouble, we have your back. The black
Amen.
Muslims have your back. So that's good.
Right. Yes.
Unfortunately, these guys were not invited to Iran. They were the most obnoxious group of racists I have ever met in my life. To
Really.
give you some indication of what it was like, I'm standing there at a break and just standing there, and an Iranian woman comes up to me and she says to me, "Would you like a cup of tea?" Typical hospitality, nice Iranian lady, young lady. So I said, sure. So she takes me over to the table where the other Americans are. It's all these black Muslims. And I sit down and I'm ready for a conversation with my fellow Americans. They all got up and walked away as soon as I sat down at the table. So I'm trying to get to Nader. The tension's building here. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get to Nader. I'm saying, Nader, you got this completely wrong. Black Lives Matter was created by George Soros. He gave him $30 million. This is a Jewish run operation to basically do something that you really don't want to get involved in. So I'm scheduled to speak and suddenly realize I'm not going to be speaking. So I go up to Nader. I said, look, you're wasting my time and your money to bring me over here and then not let me speak.
Right.
And so he said to me, don't worry. So instead of speaking to a room full of racist black Muslims, he
Right.
puts me on his national TV show. So I got to speak to the majority of the Iranian people
Wow.
and tell them exactly what I wanted to say about Black Lives Matter. So in one of these moments, that was a little bit later, but in the initial enthusiasm that I felt for Iran during this conference, where I gave a speech on sexual liberation and political control.
Right.
Uh, Everybody thought that was a great speech. And
Right.
so after I give the speech, these women are in shadows are running after me with microphones. They want to talk about, uh, and yeah, that's great. Let's talk about that. Uh, but this, so in that moment of momentary enthusiasm, I'm on camera and I say, Iran is the leader of the free world.
Well, Dr. Jones,
And
let's
so
talk. Go ahead.
all of the Muslim bashers in America get that clip of Jones saying
Yeah,
Iran is the
right.
leader of the free world.
All
Well,
the
I'm
neocons. Right.
I'm I'm coming back. I'm saying that is the case right now.
I really want you to give me the perception of the people of Iran because, as you've seen, our fearless leader who wears a hat to the coming back of our precious dead soldiers, he wears a golfing hat. Don't get me started. Anyway, our precious leader is trying to demonize these people. What I want from you, Dr. Jones, is you tell America, if I can get this video out to as many people as possible, what the Persian Iranian people are really like, especially from a Christian Catholic purview.
I think that Persia has played a significant role in salvation history. And I think they're continuing to play this role. So we're talking about the time of the Hebrew apostasy, where the Hebrew people just kept sinning against God's law and had become totally corrupt. This is a crucial aspect. Totally corrupt. What do I mean by that? You can't heal yourself. You can't repair the government. You're a dead body. That's what happens when the body dies. You can't, it can't heal itself anymore. And this was the situation with the Hebrews, and God punished them. Iran, Persia was the instrument of that punishment. It was known as the Babylonian captivity. They were all shipped off to for a term of punishment. Now, that was a term that was specific, a limited term by God's plan. It wasn't supposed to last forever. We're going to punish you. You've been bad. And it lasted, I think, 70 years. And Cyrus, the Persian emperor, woke up and said one day, it's over. Go back and rebuild the temple, and I'll give you some money to help you rebuild it. Now that is Persia's role. It's a little bit like what we would say about Islam, or let's say what did Luther say about Islam? Islam is die Peitsche Gottes. Islam is the scourge of God. Well, so the Persians, they obviously were not Muslims at that point, okay?
Right.
But the Persians were the scourge of God. They punished the God's chosen people, the Hebrews, at that point. And then it became Islam takes over. That's not a happy episode in Persian history. They were conquered by the sword. They had a high civilization. They're conquered by a bunch of Arabian camel jockeys, by a fluke in some sense or other. And Persia goes dark for 200 years.
What year is this,
Not
Dr. Jones?
We're
What
talking
year?
about 650, around
Okay.
650. The Persian War is around 650. So at this point, Persia goes dark. And then 200 years later, the signals start coming out of Persia. Ferdowsi, the great poet, writes the great Iranian Persian epic called the Shahnameh, the longest poem in history, and not one Arabic word in that poem. It's a coda, and he saved the Persian language, and because he saved the Persian language, Farsi, he saved Persian identity. And that has been true up to this day. Like nobody speaks Egyptian in Egypt. Nobody speaks any of their native languages in all of North Africa because they all spoke Arabic, and they, in a sense, lost their culture. They became totally absorbed into this Islamic world, and that has never been the case with the Persians to this day. So when I was in Golistan, I met with the Ayatollah Shakrud, and he immediately started attacking the Saudis. It's not going to change. The Saudis just stabbed the Iranians in the back again a week ago. They stabbed him in the back.
One of the
Uh,
questions
so
my
it,
wife asked me to ask you, Dr. Jones, was why is it? What is the bad blood between these countries out there that are, according to our boobus Americans, are all a bunch of Muslims? Why are they fighting each other? Why is Iran the bad guy? Why aren't they coalescing behind Iran in this current situation?
it goes all the way back to the beginning of Islam with
Please
the death
expound.
of Ali. We have we have the prophet's grandson who assumes that he's the rightful heir, and he gets murdered by the caliph. The caliphs then take over and they create their own form of Islam, where they murder the Ali, then they murder Husseini, and as a result, this becomes the foundation of Shia Islam. And every year they have this march to Karbala to mourn the death of Ali and Husseini. So it goes all the way
Well,
back
who
to the
are our players,
beginning.
Dr. Jones? Who's Shia and who's Sunni? And if, I have a friend who believes that
The great, the,
one is more rational and reasonable and logos than the other. But so break it down for us. Which are
yes.
Shia? Which are? Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
the people who call themselves the descendants of the descendants of Ali, who was the grandson of the Prophet, they are the Shia. The Caliphate basically, or became the Sunni. They are the people that took over and basically expelled them from They became the rulers. Abu Bakr, beginning with the beginning of the Caliphate around the same time. So that's the division there between the Sunni and the Shia, and it will continue to this day. Now you're talking about a group of people who had a much more ancient and developed culture than the Arabs,
The Iranians,
and
you mean?
they're the Iranians, the Shia, the Persians, and they provided most of the so-called Islamic philosophers. So Avicenna, the great polymath, known as the physician, he was a Persian. All the way up to at this point the big conflict in Islamic philosophy is between the Mutazilites, who were disciples of Aristotle, wanted to translate Aristotle, wanted to merge Aristotle into Islamic thinking, and we're going along. And then you confront the Asharites, who are saying, well, no, if you start talking about rationality and you start talking about rationality in God, that's blasphemous
Right.
because you're putting limits on God.
Right.
So the crisis comes with al-Ghazali, who was a follower, a Mutazilite at the beginning, and then he suddenly had this mystical experience, and he basically kicked it all over and wrote a book called The Incoherence of the Philosophers, and marched into kind of mysticism and voluntarism and nominalism. I think what you had was the triumph of nominalism in Islamic thought. Or conversely, you could say that nominalism in the West was basically Islamic philosophy imported into the European philosophical tradition.
Well,
So,
talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old. What is nominalism? Like I'm
okay. So Aquinas, nominalism says that all categories are categories of the mind.
right.
I've talked about
Yes.
categories of reality, categories of the mind.
Right.
Okay. Category of the mind, 24 hours in a day.
Right.
We can have 12 hours in a day. We can have 10 hours in a day. We can have
What
any
we call
number
it.
because
Right.
that's a category of the mind. And we have total control over categories of the mind. 365 and 1/4 day is a category of reality.
Right.
Okay. Now you can't do any. Now let's simplify it. Let's have
Right.
360 days in a year. It's
Right.
much simpler. It's divisible
Right.
by 12. Well, you'll end up with snow in July if you do
Right.
that. And
Eventually. Right. Right.
that was the problem with the Julian calendar. And that's the difference between a category of the mind and a category of reality. So Aquinas says, well, these nominalists are blasphemers because they're saying that that there is no order to the mind of God. Well, that's kind of the Muslim position. Look, what I would say is that it's presumptuous of us.
Right.
It's blasphemous of us to say that there is we can have impose some type of order on God's mind. Now, that's not what we do, but that's the way they say what we do. And so it comes down. I'm having this discussion with Muslims now.
Right.
I'm doing a lot of Catholic Muslim dialogue. I'm saying we need to get together because we have a common enemy. But we need to have more than simply a common enemy. And so what do we have in common here? And I'm saying, is Logos God?
Right. Well, your problem, isn't it? Your problem, Dr. Jones, is that between the Shia and the Sunni, the Shia are more accepting of the idea of the Logos of God, whereas if I have this right, you can correct me. Whereas the Sunni are more fatalistic, that God is God, and that's it, and you can't do nothing, like a Calvinist kind of.
I think you could make that generalization. Now,
Okay.
on the other hand, I have met with mullahs in Iran who are the most irrational people I've ever met in my life, and
Well,
and in that
that's
sense,
human beings.
I don't think that they are typical. This is part of the dual nature, I think, of Iranian culture. I don't think the mullahs are typical of the Iranian people. I think that we've got a kind of divide there that needs to be resolved. So I've had discussion. The first time I went to Qom, I had a discussion with a mullah there, and I'm trying to think, what the hell can we talk about? Let's talk about sex. Is there a logos to sex? And we're going back and forth. And finally, he says to me, just because you start the Coke doesn't mean you have to finish the Coke. I'm thinking, what the hell does that mean?
What does that mean?
And at this point, is that coitus interruptus we're talking about here? Or contraception? I don't know what we're talking about here. Or should we take a break and have a Coke? I don't know. But anyway, at this point, the cameraman interrupts and says, no, that's not true. So I think the cameraman knew more about sex than the mullah did. So this is kind of, so again, this guy follows me to Mashhad.
Right.
So he shows up in Mashhad, kind of ambushes me. Shows up there. All these cameramen converge on me. And we're going to have a disputation about the relationship between faith and reason.
Okay.
Okay,
how'd it go?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right,
So I'm thinking,
of all the people, you're the one.
Yes. Why not? Why not? Better than Coke. Better than talking about
coitus. Right.
I'm inspired by the place. Mashhad is on the Silk Road. We're at the Eurasian Plain. This is where the wheel was invented.
Wow.
And so I start talking about the human reason, even in its fallen state, can look at nature and come up with an invention. You can invent the wheel. And then I said you had the domestication of the horse here. You had the domestication of the dog. There's all evidence here. And I said that, you dig up certain campsites and there are no dog bones at a certain point, and then suddenly there are dogs. Mm-hmm. And so I said, this is domestication of the dog. You can kind of do it. You're sitting by the fire. You're eating something like a horse. You throw the bone out, and the dog comes and grabs the bone, and you throw it closer and closer. And eventually he interrupts me. He says, that's not true. I said, what do you mean it's not true? He said, a prophet invented the wheel.
Oh, that's right. Right, here we go.
A prophet domesticated the dog. I said, how do you know that? He said, it's in the Hadith. Now, the Hadith are the commentary on the Quran.
Right.
This is where we get the idea of the 72 virgins. The martyr will have 72
virgins. Sort of like the Talmud for
heaven.
The Jews, right?
That's right. It's Talmudic. It's commentary. No, so I said, look, I'm not a Muslim, so I don't accept the Quran as normative. If I don't accept the Quran as normative, I am certainly not going to accept the Hadith as normative. Right. So where do we go from here? And the answer is nowhere.
Right.
You can't. This is the worst case of sola scriptura I have ever experienced in my life. It was even worse than that black lady who started attacking me the Sola Scriptura and the Bible. I'm trying to talk about John Milton and Paradise. I don't want to
Right.
hear none of that poetry. I want the word of
Right. I saw that.
God.
I saw that
I
video.
want I want the word of God. Okay. I said, okay, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. That's your interpretation. That wasn't the Pope. He
Right.
wasn't Pope. St. Paul rebuked him. I said, yeah,
I
that's right.
saw.
I said, you know how we know that St. Paul wasn't a Protestant? Because he didn't found his own religion. That's what you would have done, but that's not what he did. Anyway,
Well,
so
much
this is
much as I enjoy our apologetic fights that we both had, I absolutely am empathetic because I saw that video. It's one of my favorites. I am going to ask you a question. If Iran is lost, what is lost to the world?
if Iran is lost,
What is lost to the world?
that's the end of the world. That's the end of any type of resistance to total Jewish control, which means the total hegemony of usury and the end of the universe concept of the universal moral law, the end of any type of rule other than force.
Right.
That's it. It's the end of civilization. We are at an existential moment. And it's all going to come down to whether the Straits of Hormuz stay open or not.
Do you how what's your opinion of the reaction from Rome?
It's getting stronger.
Okay.
It's getting stronger, and they were admired in diplomatic language that is not appropriate to
Right.
the urgency of the crisis we're facing. So now they're getting stronger, and the condemnations are getting stronger. And I'm just talking about the Pope. Cardinal Pizzaballa is much more forthright because he's much closer to the situation. And Pizzaballa and the patriarchs in Jerusalem issued a condemnation of Christian Zionism at a very opportune moment, just at the moment that it's obvious that Christian Zionism is the lunatic ideology that has taken over the foreign policy of the United States of America. Pizzaballa came out and condemned it. The other important thing that happened is that in that time was that Carrie Prejean Bowler, the beauty queen, was appointed to Trump's Commission on Religious
Oh,
Liberty,
yes. God bless her.
and
I saw that.
she she comes out swinging. And she
Yes.
says, I'm a Catholic. And then she turns to the rabbis and says, you have no right to impose your religion on me. Now,
Right.
that was a stroke of genius because it suddenly took interfaith dialogue into the realm of reality, out of the
Right.
realm of unreality.
Right. No, I saw that. I was very impressed with that. And then didn't they then they moved to get rid of her, right? Or they did get rid of her.
They kicked her out immediately. The lieutenant governor of Texas kicked her out, made the worst thing he could have done because she
Yeah.
immediately becomes a
Sure. A
celebrity,
martyr.
and then she stands by her guns,
God bless her.
and it becomes a debacle for everyone else. So there were two bishops on that panel,
They didn't come to her aid.
Bishop Barron and Cardinal Dolan were on the same panel, and she now to their credit, they didn't condemn her like the
Right.
whores, the money hungry whores like Bill Donahue, the
Right.
blowhard who runs the so-called Catholic League.
Right.
Lila Rose had an interview with Carrie saying, it literally said this: I love you, Carrie. You're my sister." 15 minutes later, she threw her under the bus and called her a narcissist. Simone Riscala, head of the Philos Project, that had gotten $5 million from the vulture capitalist Jewish Paul Singer. She denounced her. Now, the bishop did not denounce her, but they didn't support her either.
Right.
And so
Faint praise, as they say. Faint praise.
no, there's silence. There's no faint
Silence.
praise at
It
all.
wasn't even faint praise.
That's a totale Funkstille. That's what the Germans would say. So I did an article. It'll be the next issue of Culture Wars, which you can get by going to culturewars.com. And I said, the scripture passage immediately appeared to me. So Carrie was attacked by robbers and left bleeding by the side of the road. Okay. And then Bishop Barron came by, and when he saw her, he crossed over to the other side.
Right.
And then
Good.
Cardinal Dolan came by, and he saw Carrie lying there bleeding by the side of the road, and he walked to the other side. But then a Muslim came along,
The Samaritan.
and the Muslim bound up her wounds and said, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" Now, that's reality. There was a Muslim on the program, and she was the only one who came to the assistance of Carrie
That's that's a
in that
great
moment.
segue for my next question. So I've asked you what would happen if Iran, what we can say, simplify it, if Iran loses the war, what do we lose? And you gave a great answer. Now my question is, if the other team loses, uh, now that's not quite the question. Let me get it right. Oh yeah. So the point I'm trying to make, because you brought up Christian Zionism, which is the underlying force for all this mess. I would even go all the way back to Protestantism in general in America. But this Christian Zionism has been the buttress of all this nonsense for years. Do you believe that if the Iranians can become out of this victorious in some sense, that it would be the end of the legitimacy of Christian Zionism in America, and maybe even, to my hope, American Protestantism in general?
Yeah, absolutely. What Benjamin Netanyahu did was begin the destruction of Israel. This is totally the way God works. Hegel
Yes,
called it the
yes.
cunning of reason.
Cunning of reason.
You,
Yep.
you, you let this wicked man pursue his wicked desires, and he will bring about God's will in a way that he does not like. That's what's going to happen. So I am saying that our deliverance is at hand, and that Iran is going to bring about the deliverance of the American people from their bondage to this cabal of Jewish genocidal maniacs. Now, I am saying that we are in the same situation that the Hebrews were in at the time just before the Babylonian captivity, which is to say, we can't, this system is so corrupt, it cannot correct itself.
Right.
Now, I don't think that's an exaggeration. We have
That's
a
what the young
Congress
kids
that
call
is,
black pill. That's the young kids are calling black pill. Yep, I agree.
we have a Congress that is totally, with one exception,
Right,
totally under the control of Jewish money through IPAC.
right.
That Congress cannot reform itself.
Well, it's
This
not going to vote for
government,
it. Nope.
this government cannot reform itself. It is in a state of total corruption. And when the corruption is total and the reform can't come from within, it's got to come from without. And God will bring about this change, whether we like it or not, because God will not be mocked. And what I'm going to say is, I've said it many times, the state of Israel is going to go out of existence by, it will not last longer than 80 years. Ehud Barak has talked about the curse of 80 years. The irony, of course, is that the Israelis are bringing about their own destruction.
Which is how God works.
This is how God works. This
Yes.
is how God works in human history. And they are bringing about the destruction of Israel. And the destruction of Israel is the beginning of our liberation.
Well, let's go to religion in America, though. I'm specifically speaking to these. Did you see that picture of everybody touching hands on each other's
Yes.
shoulders over? And it's so despicable. And my question is, when this settles, I believe, well, this is my personal belief, that I believe that, if I may, that the crisis, the chastising that'll come to Americans will free them, as you say, from the Israeli clutches. It will also free us from depending on globalism, and maybe we can start building our own stuff again, bring our own oil again. But I want to talk specifically about religion. As a Catholic, I believe Protestantism is a curse. That's just my personal opinion. Um, do you think American Protestantism, specifically obviously the Zionist Christians, can survive this? Even it's only 9 days in, and they're already a complete
No,
disgrace.
no. I've already said Protestantism is disappearing.
Yes.
This is going to be the first casualty of the of the Third Republic, which ended in 2025. Emmanuel Todt said that. The Frenchman said that. The American empire is collapsing because Protestantism is the hidden grammar of the American empire, and Protestantism is evaporating. So
Right.
this is not even the war. It's not the war that's doing this. It's Protestantism is just running out of gas. It's just disappearing. So the example, they did a survey. What percentage of Protestant sects are baby boomers? My generation. Well, go down the line, it's around 50%.
Mm-hmm.
That means the mainline denominations are going to lose 50% of their congregations simply by people dying out over the next 10 years.
Right.
Okay. Now you add to that the Christian Zionism. Okay, so it's split. The symbol is the interview that Tucker Carlson did with Ted Cruz. That's Protestantism.
Yeah. Right.
So Tucker Carlson's an Episcopalian. That's been taken over by homosexuals. Okay, right. Like all the mainstream Protestant sects have been taken over by homosexuals. Ted Cruz represents the right wing or the fundamentalist wing, the evangelical wing of this, and they've been taken over by the Jews. It's Christian Zionism. So we know that the homosexual thing is they're just going to evaporate. But the Zionism is going strong right now because of Donald Trump. And you saw that picture of the office. They're all going, right. God bless Donald Trump. God, you carry our troops to victory. We are, oh God, give us.
You notice who was missing, Dr. Jones? I don't see the Catholic Mrs. Trump or her son there in those prayer meetings.
There was not one Catholic at that meeting.
Just a side note.
No Catholic would attend something like that, and thank God, no Catholic did attend. That's not the Catholic problem, but that is the Protestant problem. And so, what is the point of Christian Zionism? Support of Israel. What happens when Israel goes out of existence?
Pop.
That's it. All at once, nothing first, just as bubbles do when they burst. That's what Oliver Wendell Holmes said about Calvinism in the One Hoss Shay. Right. All at once, nothing first, as bubbles do when they burst. It went like that, and suddenly, hey, where is it? That's what's going to happen. That's what happens to Protestantism, and then we will be faced with the battle I've already described: Catholics versus Jews over whether there's a universal moral law.
Do you think this conflict is going to escalate to a wider, catastrophic third world war nuclear conflagration? You and I actually spoke a couple years ago about Ukraine and the situation with Russia and Ukraine. Do you believe that this could be dragging in the Russians and the Chinese? Or even Europe, they're already in. Yeah, they're already helping.
The Russians and the Chinese are already fighting on the side of Iran, not specifically, but giving them lots of intel and sophisticated. Right. It was the Russians who allowed the Iranians to shut down Starlink. So no, I don't think it's going to spread, because I think it's going to be over in 2 weeks, because the United States is going to run out of ammunition. It's that simple. And at the same time, so we've had.
Well, you don't think there's some talk from the quote conspiracy theorists? I'm just using that sarcastically. That Israel will use their Samson thing. They'll say that, well, if Israel can't exist,
if they do, that is a very quick end to Israel. Israel's over at that point. Right. So don't even think about it. If you want to have some type, salvage something, so make peace before.
But they're crazy people. They're not necessarily rational, Dr.
Look, there is a suicidal tendency in Jewish life that's symbolized by Masada during the time of the first rebellion, where they all climbed to the top of a mountain and killed themselves.
Right.
And now they're going to claim they're going to kill everyone else. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that up till now, the Iranians have used their cheap drones, and that's been catastrophic, because these Patriot missiles and THAAD missiles that cost $2 million a piece or something like that.
They're blowing up paintings of jet planes that might have cost them $200 in paint and plywood with $2 billion smart bombs, right? Something like that.
So that's asymmetrical. And now they have almost exhausted their batteries, their missiles, and now the really sophisticated Iranian missiles are start coming in, the Shahed, the hypersonic missiles. And at this point, Israel better beg for a ceasefire. They better surrender. It's time. It's not, we're talking about unconditional
Do you believe they
surrender.
will
I
actually
think,
would do that? Do you think that's even possible in this in their current situation?
look, anything's possible.
Sure.
First of all, what I see happening before that happens is regime change, which means get rid of Netanyahu.
Mhm,
Netanyahu, if I were an Israeli, I would be furious with Benjamin Netanyahu because
mhm,
he's the one who put these people in harm's way.
mhm.
So is he going to be there forever? Will they ever get rid of him? So bring in some other guy who says, "I'm sorry." First of all, this would be first time in history that a Jew ever said he was sorry and made a mistake.
Right.
Okay. So that would be an epoch making event. But to
Right,
say
right there.
something like, okay, Netanyahu's gone. We have a kind of reasonable guy here. We need to stop. That's possible. But we also have this history, as I said, of Masada, where the Jews who have rebelled against Logos and killed the Logos incarnate, they don't know limits. And so they pursue something until some outside force comes and crushes them. And
Well,
that's
I'm
where they
I'm
are
not
right now.
speaking for you or anybody else on this planet. I'm speaking for myself. I don't want to see any form of Israeli government there. Period. I don't
I
want
think
any.
we have reached. I think the world has reached a conclusion. If you let this government continue, you're going to continue to have problems. These problems will not go away. They've been given every chance to get along with people. They cannot get along with anyone, and so we simply have to remove this government.
Well,
We have to pray for the end of Israel because that's the only thing that's going to bring about world peace.
what would go in its place? A Palestinian state? I mean, what would?
Let them bring the Palestinians in. We do not want to any violence against the Jewish people. Let them. What we need to do, what we experience has taught us that Jews cannot be citizens. You
Right.
cannot give the Jew the right of a citizen. Napoleon made this mistake. He's the first European leader to do this, and it was catastrophic for France. That's a Civiltà Cattolica. You can go to fidelitypress.org and buy that three-part series from Civiltà Cattolica about the Jewish question. This is the official magazine of the Catholic Church
Hmm.
talking about what happened after the French Revolution, or specifically when Napoleon gave Jews citizenship. And the answer is any country that turns away from laws created by Christian kings will end up being ruled by Jews. That was the official magazine of the Catholic Church in 1890. That is the Catholic wisdom we have to go back to. It was a failed experiment. So what you can do, okay, bring the Palestinians in. It was their land to begin with. You can have the Jews there as long as they behave themselves, but you can't allow them to be citizens anymore. We cannot allow them to be citizens. Look at the catastrophe of America. How many
Yeah.
dual citizens do we have in America who
The
are
entire
controlling our
Congress,
foreign policy?
almost the entire Congress. Well,
When
the
to give you the ultimate in chutzpah here,
right,
Jonathan Pollard, the biggest traitor in American history, has
right,
now told the American government they need to arrest Tucker Carlson and put him in a
right.
concentration camp.
Oh, and Candy too. Candy too. Well, and let's get back to Catholicism. So in Iran, uh, what is the Catholic presence in Iran, and why? Because I want to get to your question that you've said several times, and I agree 1,000%, that no Catholic can support the other side against Iran. In Iran, who are our Catholic brothers in there? Is there a large presence, and where are they located?
There's
What's
largely, I went to church, I went to mass at a Catholic church in Iran. I was taken. I'm a prisoner. I'm a prisoner. Basically, I don't speak Farsi.
right,
I
right,
have to be taken everywhere by my interpreter. I don't. It's a
sure,
big city. I don't know how to get around. So they took
right,
me there, and she waited there while I went to mass.
right,
It's a public building. There's a cross on the top, and it's near the train station where they just dedicated a train station to the Blessed Mother.
right. I
So
remember that. Yeah,
the Armenians have a large minority there, and well, it's not technically Catholic, I guess, but they're an ancient rite that
Right.
is similar to
One of the
Catholicism.
Orthodox Catholic rites. This is what I'm speaking to. So,
It's the most ancient. The
right,
first country in the world to convert to Catholicism was Armenia. So it's an ancient rite, and they were there. So I'm saying this is not Saudi Arabia where you have to hide
right,
in a motel room and hope
right.
that the secret police don't get you. It's not the case in Iran. On the other hand, I talked to the priest afterwards, and he says the mullahs are rabidly anti-Catholic.
Right.
Well, I had experiences the opposite there too. So after I had my conversation with Naziri about Coca-Cola, the other mullah, we take a break. I go out in the balcony. The other mullah comes out and he says, "We don't want to convert people like you. You're a believer. It's obvious you're a believer. We will work together for peace until the return of until the 12th imam returns from the state of occultation." And then he said, "When that happens, Jesus will be at his side." And I said, "Well, if Jesus is going to be there, then I want to be there too. So let's do that."
Well, how do we clean house in America when this is all over
We
at this
can't.
point?
We don't. We don't. So take it easy, fellas. My fellow Americans, don't worry about it. God's in charge.
Yes, amen.
God has appointed the Iranians to solve this problem that we can't solve. We can't solve this problem. We voted for Donald Trump. I voted for
I
Donald
voted
Trump
3 times.
be,
I'll admit it.
because he told me he was going
Right.
to end the war in the Ukraine within 24 hours. He betrayed America first. It's Israel first. We are in a war that we can't win, okay? But God is in charge. Look at history. Look at history. God uses people to bring about his ends. God lets the wicked pursue their schemes to their own self-destruction.
Right.
That's Israel. God makes use of other people. God has always used Islam as the scourge of God to punish Christians. Okay, in some sense, we are being punished, but let's accept the
Chastise.
punishment. We
It's
deserve it.
chastisement.
Chastisement.
Right.
Let's be reasonable. I've been saying this to my Irish friends. Okay. Don't complain that you got Muslims here when you abort your own children.
Right. Exactly right. Yep. Yeah. Well,
48% of all pregnancies in England end in abortion. Don't complain that your country is full of Muslims if you're going to abort half of the children you conceive.
well, the early predictions are almost clear that the so-called elections in America, which I find are a farce, but the midterm elections, we're going to get the so-called Republicans are going to get wiped out, and it's back to the same ping pong game. But obviously, the other side, the Democrats, are so disgusting. I can't imagine either party. I'm personally a monarchist. You know about that about me. I would like to see a great
Yeah,
Catholic king take over America.
yeah.
That would,
Get that guy. Get the king on the phone. Get the king on the phone. All
yeah, we
right.
don't have that. No, I understand.
Actually,
That's a
I
that's a
was
that's a mind thing, not a reality thing.
I was scheduled to give a speech in France at
Okay,
the anniversary of the Vendée, the celebration of the Vendée,
right.
which was the great Catholic uprising against the and the son, the descendant of the King of France, wrote a letter to us congratulating us. So you could get the King of France on the phone,
Right.
okay?
Yeah, it's good.
But
It's
but
a
you
great
can't get the
monarch.
King of you can't get the King of America on the throne because we never had one.
No, no, but we may have to get one if we get chastised so hard that the country is not the same country. Do you believe your grandchildren will be living in the same country that we're living in right now?
I'm
It,
I'm talking about republics.
right.
We are at the
No,
end
I
of the Third
understand. I'm talking
Republic.
about America. Yes, the American Republic.
Yeah, well, if in a sense it will look like it looks like the end of the world to certain people. It's what do you mean by the same country? Do you mean will I still be able to row on the St. Joe River on
Yeah,
mornings in
stuff
the
like
summer?
that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I
stuff like
think
that.
so. I think
Good.
so. I don't
So do
think
I.
I don't think the Iranians, if they were, they're not going to invade this country. If they did invade it, they wouldn't stop me from rowing on the St. Joe River. And I would be liberated from a group of people who have been persecuting me for decades now.
Right, right.
Is it do I get shadow banned by the Iranians?
No, the Iranians have never harmed a
Do
single
I
American.
do I get slandered? Is the ADL an Iranian operation? The ADL, this money laundering, Jewish criminal money laundering operation, whose job it is to defame anybody they don't like, but with the term anti-Semitism, who has now infected the Catholic Church, and whether I'm a Catholic in good standing or not, uh, is that the Iranians?
No,
Did I miss something here? Is it
no.
the Russians? No, it's the Jews.
Well,
And this
listen,
is
Dr.
so
Jones,
what?
your hard work on this topic of the Jewish question has come to fruition. I've watched. There used to be a time on Facebook, for instance, as an anecdotal piece of evidence. I used to be able, or used to not be able to even use the word Jew as a noun in a sentence on Facebook without
Right,
risking.
right,
Dude, it's like almost wide open criticism of Jews in Israel on Facebook of all places. Forget
right.
Telegram. Telegram, forget it. It's awesome there. And the other groups that you and I are forced to put our videos in. I think the logos is kicking in on this Jewish question. Would you agree?
Well, it's the zeitgeist. It's the spirit of the time. This is God moving. This is Logos rising. This
Right.
is God moving through human history. You know, I said I row. Okay, if you're not rowing on a river, you're still moving.
Right.
You can row against the river,
But you're still
okay?
moving if
But
you stop.
that river is moving in one direction, and that's where the way God moves in human history. And Logos is God. And so we're always moving toward higher consciousness in spite of the sins that we committed and the sins that can postpone the arrival of God, it's God's grace on our culture and so on and so forth. But that river, it keeps on moving.
Well, Dr.
Keeps on
Jones,
moving.
thank you, sir. I'm going to end it on that. I think, do you have any final words that something you would like to get out there in regard to this specific thing and to your Catholic brethren when you say no Catholics have any business supporting the group
I'm
against them?
saying I'm saying fear is useless. What is needed is love. And
Amen.
I'm saying that at the end of the Third Republic, our deliverance is at hand. This is a moment of hope.
Amen. I will close on a perfect line. Thank you, Dr. Jones. I hope you enjoyed our interview, and I look forward to asking you again. And keep rowing.